Shalom Aleichem, peace be unto you. Welcome to this week's study series. Last week's Torah portion was Beshalach. It mainly dealt with the exodus of the Bnei Yisrael from Mitzrayim. YaHuWaH showed his people mighty signs and wonders, even parted the sea for them to pass through, but for the Mitzrayim to perish in the floods. He was with them in the pillar of cloud by day, and in the pillar of fire by night. He provided food and drink, and yet the people always murmured and transgressed YaHuWaH's commandments. From now on, the study series videos will be shorter in order for me to work on other projects as well. These study notes should just serve as an overview of topics that can be further studied by the viewer. And without further delay, let's move over to the first topic on the list, which is the Song of Mosheh, which is a song of praise and thanksgiving to the Most High. This song is further mentioned in Revelation and needs to be studied. Let's read. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verses 1 to 19. Then sang Moshe and the Bnei Yisrael this song unto YaHuWaH, and spake, saying, I will sing unto YaHuWaH, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. YaHuWaH is my strength and song, and he has become my Yeshua. He is my Elohim, and I will prepare him an habitation, my father's Elohim, and I will exalt him. YaHuWaH is a man of war. YaHuWaH is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host has he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank into the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand, O YaHuWaH, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O YaHuWaH, has dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with the blast of thy nostrils the waters were gathered together. The floods stood upright as an heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O YaHuWaH, among the Elohim? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou, in thy mercy, hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of the Philistine. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed, the mighty men of Moab. Trembling shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over, O YaHuWaH, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O YaHuWaH, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Adonai, which thy hands have established. YaHuWaH shall reign forever and ever, for the horse of Paro went in with his chariots, and with his horsemen into the sea, and YaHuWaH brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the Bnai Yisrael went on dry land in the midst of the sea. Sefer Chitzayon, chapter 15, verses 1 to 8. And I saw another sign in Shamayim, great and marvelous, 7 Malachim, having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of Elohim. And I saw, as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire. And them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of Elohim. And they sing the Song of Mosheh, Eved Elohim, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, YaHuWaH, El Shaddai. Just and true are thy ways, thou Melech of Kodeshim. Who shall not fear thee, O YaHuWaH, and glorify thy name? For thou only art Kodesh. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in Shamayim was opened. And the 7 Malachim came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 Malachim 7 golden vials full of the wrath of Elohim, who liveth for ever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of Elohim and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 Malachim were fulfilled. When I was watching one of TruthFact's videos, I came across Psalm 96 and its connection to the Torah Portion Beshalach, or the Exodus of the Bnai Yisrael in general. It starts by inviting the audience to sing a new song unto YaHuWaH. The whole psalm is a homage to his might, strength, glory, power, and dominion. There is no other El besides him. Let's read. Tehillim 96. O sing unto YaHuWaH a new song. Sing unto YaHuWaH all the earth. Sing unto YaHuWaH, bless his name. Shew forth his Yeshua from day to day. Declare his glory among the heathen, his wonders among all people. For YaHuWaH is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all Elohim. For all the Elohim of the nations are idols. But YaHuWaH made Shamayim. Honor and majesty are before him. Strength and beauty are in his sanctuary. Give unto YaHuWaH, O ye kindreds of the people. Give unto YaHuWaH glory and strength. Give unto YaHuWaH the glory due unto his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. O worship YaHuWaH in the beauty of holiness. Fear before him all the earth. Say among the heathen that YaHuWaH reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. Let Shamayim rejoice, and let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar, and the fullness thereof. Let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice before YaHuWaH, for he cometh to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. There is an echoing account in Chitzayon chapter 14 verses 1 to 5 concerning a new song that can only be learned by the 144,000. Let's read. And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from Shamayim, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sang, as it were, a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song, but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto Elohim and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of Elohim. The next topic deals with the Targum mentioning the word of YaHuWaH as a real entity. There are many aspects of the Targum I am skeptical of, but I love how it emphasizes on the word of YaHuWaH that represents Mashiach. Let's read. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 13, verse 17. And it was, when Paro had released the people, that YaHuWaH did not conduct them by the way of the land of the Pelishtim, though that was the near one. For YaHuWaH said, lest the people be affrighted in seeing their brethren, who were killed in war, 200,000 men of strength of the tribe of Ephraim, who took shields and lances and weapons of war, and went down to Gath to carry off the flocks of the Pelishtim, and because they transgressed against the statute of the word of YaHuWaH, and went forth from Mitzrayim 3 years before the appointed end of their servitude, they were delivered into the hand of the Pelishtim, who slew them. These are the dry bones, which the word of YaHuWaH restored to life by the ministry hand of Yechezkel the prophet in the vale of Dura, but which, if they now saw them, they would be afraid and return into Mitzrayim. I think this is a perfect example where you can see additions made to the text, because Yechezkel was not living at that time, and this passage seems to indicate an interpretation of what is written in Yechezkel concerning the dry bones. I am not sure what to do with this, so because I don't want to withhold anything from you, I just leave it there. Let's continue. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 7. And he took 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of the Mitzrayim his servants, who were afraid of the word of YaHuWaH, lest they should be killed with pestilence, if not with hail. And the third mule, for drawing and following swiftly, he added to each chariot. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 25. And he brake the wheels of Paro's carriages, so that they drave them with hardship, and that they went on and left them behind. And the Mitzrayim said one to another, let us flee from the people of the house of Yisrael, for this is the word of YaHuWaH, who fought for them in Mitzrayim. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 31. And Yisrael saw the power of the mighty hand by which YaHuWaH had wrought the miracles in Mitzrayim. And the people feared before YaHuWaH, and believed in the name of the word of YaHuWaH, and in the prophecies of Mosheh his servant. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 1. Behold, then sang Mosheh and the sons of Yisrael this song of praise before YaHuWaH, and saying they said, thanksgiving and praise we bring before YaHuWaH El Shaddai, who is glorified above the glorious and exalted above the exalted, who punishes by his word whomsoever glorifies himself before him. Therefore, when Paro the wicked bare himself proudly before YaHuWaH, and being uplifted in his heart, followed after the people of the sons of Yisrael, the Bnei Israel. Their horses and their chariots he threw and buried in the sea of Suf. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 2. YaHuWaH is mighty and greatly to be feared over all the world. He spake in his word and became to me an Elohim of YaHuWshuwaH. From their mothers' breasts even the children have given signs with their fingers to their fathers, and said, This is our Elohim, who nourished us with honey from the rock, and with oil from the stone of clay, at the time when our mothers went forth upon the face of the field to give us birth, and leave us there. And he sent an Malach, who washed us, and enwrapped us, and now will we praise him. He is the Elohim of our fathers, and we will exalt him. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 8. For by the word from before thee, the waters became heaps. They stood as if bound like skins that confine flowing water, and the depth were congealed in the flood of the great sea. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 25. And he prayed before YaHuWaH, and YaHuWaH showed him the bitter tree of Adifne, and he wrote upon it the great and glorious name, and cast it into the midst of the waters, and the waters were rendered sweet. And there did the word of YaHuWaH appoint to him the ordinance of the Shabbat, and the statute of honoring father and mother, the judgments concerning wounds and bruises, and the punishment wherewith offenders are punished. And there he tried them with the 10th trial. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 26. And said, If you truly hearken to the word of YaHuWaH your Elohim, and do that which is right before him, and will listen to his precepts, and keep all his statutes, all those evil things that I laid upon the Mitzrayim, I will not lay upon thee. But if thou wilt transgress against the word of the Torah, upon thee shall they be sent. If thou convert, I will remove from before thee, for I am YaHuWaH, thy healer. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 16, verse 3. And the Bnei Israel said to them, Would that we had died by the word of YaHuWaH in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the cisterns of meat, and ate bread and had enough. Why hast thou brought us out into this wilderness, to kill all this congregation with hunger? Sefer Shemoth, chapter 16, verse 8. And Moshe said, By this you shall know, when YaHuWaH prepareth you at evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to satisfy, that your complainings wherewith you complain against him are heard before YaHuWaH. And we, what are we accounted? Your complaints are not against us, but against the word of YaHuWaH. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 17, verses 13 to 16. And it came to pass that in the evening the Ephesians came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a fall of holy dew, prepared as a table, round about the camp, and the clouds ascended and caused manna to descend upon the dew, and there was upon the face of the desert a minute substance in lines, minute as the hoarfrost upon the ground. And the sons of Yisrael, the Bnei Yisrael, beheld and wondered, and said, a man to his companion, Man who? For they knew not what it was. And Moshe said to them, It is the bread which has been laid up for you from the beginning in Shamayim on high. And now YaHuWaH will give it to you to eat. This is the word which YaHuWaH has dictated. You are to gather of it, every man according to the number of your souls, every man according to the mouth of the number of the persons of his tabernacle, are you to take. Again, I want to make it crystal clear that I do not want to form any doctrine or teaching based on the Aramaic Targum. Its solemnly purpose is to be a study tool, And currently, I do not regard it inspired scripture, because there are many editions made by man. Maybe I will change my opinion in the future after studying these Targums in depth. Nevertheless, let me share with you some noteworthy passages from the Targum. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 2. Speak to the Bnei Yisrael that they return back and encamp before the mouths of Hiratah as they lie, created after the manner of the children of man, male and female, and their eyes open to them. It is the place of Tains, which is between Migdol and the sea. Before the idol Zephon, that is left of all the idols of Mitzrayim, for the Mitzrim will say, more excellent is Baal Zephon than all idols, because it is left and not smitten. And therefore will they come to worship it, and will find that you are camped nigh unto it, on the border of the sea. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 9. And the Mitzrim followed after them, and came upon them as they were encamped by the sea, gathering of pearls and goodly stones, which the river Pishon had carried from the Garden of Eden into the Gihon, and the Gihon had carried into the Sea of Suf, and the Sea of Suf had cast upon its bank. But all the chariot horses of Paro and his horsemen and his hosts were coming towards the mouths of Hiratah, which are before the idol Zephon. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 11. But the wicked generation said to Moshe, because there were no places of burial for us in Mitzrayim, hast thou led us forth to die in the wilderness? What hast thou done to us in bringing us out of Mitzrayim? Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verse 13. 4 parties were made among the Bnei Yisrael on the shore of the weedy sea. One said, let us go down into the sea. Another said, let us return into Mitzrayim. Another said, let us set against them the line of battle. And another said, let us raise a cry against them and confound them. Unto the company which said, let us go down to the sea, spake Moshe, fear not, stand still, and see the YaHuWshuwaH of YaHuWaH, which will be wrought for you today. To the company which said, let us return into Mitzrayim, Moshe said, you shall not return. For though you see the Mitzrim today, you will see them no more forever. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 14, verses 20 to 24. And it came between the host of Yisrael and the host of the Mitzrim a cloud, one half of which was light, and one half darkness. On the one side it darkened upon the Mitzrim, and on the other side it shined upon Yisrael all night. And one host did not attack the other all the night. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, with the great and glorious rod which was created at the beginning, and on which were engraven and set forth the great and glorious name, and the 10 signs which had smitten the Mitzrim, and the 3 fathers of the world, and the 6 mothers, and the 12 tribes of Yaakov. And straightway YaHuWaH brought a vehement east wind upon the sea all night, and made the sea dry, and divided the waters into 12 divisions according to the 12 tribes of Yaakov. And the Bnei Yisrael went through the midst of the sea upon the ground, and the waters were congealed like a wall, 300 miles on their right hand and on their left. And the Mitzrim followed and went in after them, all the horses of Paro, and his chariots and horsemen, into the midst of the sea. And it was that in the morning watch, at the time that the powers on high come to offer praise, YaHuWaH looked forth with anger upon the hosts of the Mitzrim, from the column of fire, to hurl upon them flakes of fire and hail, and from the column of cloud, and confounded the host of the Mitzrim. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 12. The sea spake to the earth, receive thy children, but the earth spake to the sea, receive thy murderers. and the sea was not willing to overwhelm them, and the earth was not willing to swallow them up. The earth was afraid to receive them, lest they should be required from her in the day of the great judgment in the world to come, even as the blood of Havel will be required of her, whereupon thou, O YaHuWaH, didst stretch forth thy right hand and swearing to the earth that in the world to come they should not be required of her. And the earth opened her mouth and consumed them. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 19. For Paro's horses with his chariots and horsemen went into the sea, and YaHuWaH made the waters of the sea to return upon them. But the Bnei Yisrael walked upon the land in the midst of the sea, and there did spring up sweet fountains, and trees yielding food, and verdure and ripe fruits, even in the ground of the sea. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 15, verse 27. And they came to Elim, and in Elim were 12 fountains of water, a fountain for each tribe, and 70 palm trees, corresponding with the 70 elders of Yisrael, and they encamped there by the waters. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 16, verse 21. And they gathered from the time of the dawn until the first hour of the day, every man according to his eating. But at the fourth hour, when the sun had waxed hot upon it, it liquefied, and made streams of water, which flowed away into the great sea, and wild animals that were clean, and cattle, came to drink of it, and the Bnei Yisrael hunted, and ate them. Sefer Shemoth, chapter 17, verses 6 to 8. Behold, I will stand before thee there, on the spot where thou sawest the impress of the foot on Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock with thy rod, and therefrom shall come forth waters for drinking, and the people shall drink. And Moshe did so before the elders of Yisrael, the Zakanim of Yisrael. And he called the name of that place Temptation and Strife, because there the Bnei Yisrael contended with Moshe, and because they tempted YaHuWaH, saying, Does the glory of the majesty of YaHuWaH truly dwell among us, or not? And Amalek came from the land of the south, and leaped on that night 1,600 miles. And on account of the disagreement which had been between Esau and Yaakov, he came and waged war with Yisrael and Rephidim, and took and killed some of the men of the house of Dan, for the cloud did not embrace them, because of the strange worship that was among them. Let's move over to the next topic on the list, Manna, the food of angels. Regarding the food that fell from heaven, from Shamayim, there are interesting accounts to be found in 2nd Esdras and the Antiquities of the Jews by Flavius Josephus. Let's read. Sefer Esdras Revi, chapter 1, verses 4 to 19. And the word of YaHuWaH came unto me, saying, Go thy way, and shew my people their sinful deeds, and their children their wickedness, which they have done against me, that they may tell their children's children, because the sins of their fathers are increased in them, for they have forgotten me, and have offered unto strange Elohim. Am not I even he that brought them out of Eretz Mitzrayim, from the house of bondage? But they have provoked me unto wrath, and despised my counsels. Pull thou off then the hair of thy head, and cast all evil upon them. For they have not been obedient unto my Torah, but it is a rebellious people. How long shall I forbear them? And to whom I have done so much good? Many Malachim have I destroyed for their sakes. Paro with his servants, and all his power have I smitten down. All the Goyim have I destroyed before them. And in the east I have scattered the people of 2 provinces, even of Tyros and Sidon, and have slain all their enemies. Speak thou therefore unto them, saying, Thus says YaHuWaH, I led you through the sea, and in the beginning gave you a large and safe passage. I gave you Moshe for a leader and Aharon for a priest, a Kohen. I gave you light in a pillar of fire, and great wonders have I done among you. Yet have you forgotten me, says YaHuWaH. Thus says El Shaddai, the quails were as a token to you. I gave you tents for your safeguard. Nevertheless you murmured there, and triumphed not in my name for the destruction of your enemies. But ever to this day do ye yet murmur, where are the benefits that I have done for you? When ye were hungry and thirsty in the wilderness, did ye not cry unto me, saying, Why hast thou brought us into this wilderness to kill us? It had been better for us to have served the Mitzrayim than to die in this wilderness. Then had I pity upon your mournings, and gave you manna to eat, so ye did eat angels' bread. Flavius Josephus, The Antiquities of the Jews, Book 3, Chapter 1, Section 6. So divine and wonderful a food was this. It also supplied the want of other sorts of food to those that fed on it. And even now in all that place, this manna comes down in rain, according to what Moshe then obtained of Elohim. It was sent to the people for their sustenance. Now the Ivrim call this food manna, for the particle man, in our language, is the asking of a question, what is this? So the Ivrim were very joyful at what was sent them from Shamayim. Now they made use of this food for 40 years, or as long as they were in the wilderness. Lastly, let's talk about the similarities between Moshe and YaHuWshuwaH HaMashiach as covenant mediators. Moshe was the mediator between the Bnei Yisrael and Elohim. When the people had no food nor drink, they complained about that to Moshe and Aharon and murmured, not realizing that they were murmuring against YaHuWaH and his word, as we read in the Sefer Shemoth, chapter 16, verse 8. And Moshe said, By this you shall know when YaHuWaH prepareth you at evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to satisfy, that your complainings wherewith you complain against him are heard before YaHuWaH. And we, what are we accounted? Your complaints are not against us, but against the word of YaHuWaH. That was the account of the Targum. In the King James Version we read, And Moshe said, This shall be, when YaHuWaH shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that YaHuWaH heareth your murmurings, which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against YaHuWaH. As we will later see, the people were not able to speak or listen to YaHuWaH personally, and were very afraid of him. They asked Moshe to be the mouth of YaHuWaH lest they die. We should be careful when thoughts or emotions of murmuring, complaints, etc. arise in our hearts, lest we do the same mistake. For example, in Bereshit we read, Sefer Bereshit, chapter 30, verses 1 to 2, And when Rachel saw that she bare Yaakov no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Yaakov, Give me children, or else I die. And Yaakov's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in Elohim's stead, who has withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? So we see, Rachel was complaining to Yaakov, but actually she was complaining to YaHuWaH, because he is the one that withheld the fruit of her womb. And concerning the mediator status of Moshe, we read in the Sefer Shemoth, chapter 20, verse 19, And they said unto Moshe, Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not Elohim speak with us, lest we die. Furthermore, Shaul warns us in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 to 10, Moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moshe in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink. for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Mashiach. But with many of them Elohim was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, that the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Mashiach, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of their destroyer. Moshe, although a very well-known and honored prophet and mediator of the Old Covenant, was a man born in sin, and sinned during his life. As we do need a Savior, so does he. How wonderful is the testimony found in the Beshalach Yahu, chapter 17, verses 1-8, concerning the Mount of Transfiguration. And after 6 days YaHuWshuwaH taketh Kephas, Yaakov, and Yohanan his brother, and bringeth them up into an high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moshe and Elijah, talking with him. Then answered Kepha, and said unto YaHuWshuwaH, Adonai, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make there 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moshe, and one for Elijah. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and were sore afraid. And YaHuWshuwaH came and touched them, and said, Arise, and be not afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man, save YaHuWshuwaH only. YaHuWshuwaH HaMashiach is the one and only true mediator of the one and only covenant, established by his perfect, holy blood. Sefer Timotheus Rishon, chapter 2, verse 5 reads, For there is one Elohim, and one mediator between Elohim and man, the man YaHuWshuwaH HaMashiach. And the Sefer Ivrim, chapter 9, verse 15 reads, And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, the New Covenant, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament or the First Covenant, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. And the Sefer Yochanan, chapter 1, verse 17 reads, For the Torah was given by Moshe, but grace and truth came by YaHuWshuwaH HaMashiach. Sefer Ivrim, chapter 8, verses 5-13. Who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moshe was admonished of Elohim, when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern shewed to thee in the mount. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he says, Behold, days come, says YaHuWaH, when I will make a new covenant with the Bayit Yisrael, the house of Yisrael, and with the house of Yehuda, the Bayit Yehuda, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Eretz Mitzrayim, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, says YaHuWaH. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Yisrael, with the Bayit Yisrael, after those days, says YaHuWaH. I will put my Torah in their mind, and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a Elohim, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know YaHuWaH, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness and their sins, and their iniquities will I remember no more. And that he saith, A new covenant, he has made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxes old is ready to vanish away. Sefer Yochanan Rishon, chapter 2, verses 1 to 4 reads, My little children, these things write I unto you, that ye sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, YaHuWshuwaH HaMashiach, the Tzaddik, and he is the propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world. And hereby we do know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. And the Sefer Romayim, chapter 8, verses 26 to 31 concludes, Likewise, the Ruwach also helpeth our infirmities. For we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Ruwach itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And he that searches the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Ruwach, because he maketh intercession for the Kodeshim according to the will of Elohim. And we know that all things work together for the good to them that love Elohim, to them who are called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate, to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified. What shall we then say to these things? If Elohim be for us, who can be against us? This is the end of this week's Torah Portion Study. I hope you have been blessed by it and can use these topics as a starting point / connecting factor for your own future personal study time. May YaHuWaH bless you and your loved ones who are bought by the most precious blood of YaHuWshuwaH HaMashiach, our Messiah, the King of Kings. Amen.